People say I'm an overthinker, but better to be an overthinker than an underthinker. My brain's
never really a fan of filing court cases, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and you got to protect.
He didn't. I could never do what he did. Yeah. Most people in the world could never do what he did. But he's got himself into this position.
The tone grew darker as the speaker suggested the incident was not simply bad luck, but a convergence of warning signs, arguing that what fans celebrated as victory inside the ring may have been followed by a devastating collapse in real life, forcing Joshua to confront betrayal, negligence, and irreversible consequences.
talking about, oh, he's this, he's that, he's that. I said, but why are you worrying about what someone else has done? What have you done as a fighter to kind of boost your ego?
Speaker 1 intensified the narrative by explaining how public perception shifted once investigations escalated, noting reports that federal authorities were examining the circumstances surrounding the crash, transforming speculation into one of the highest stakes and most closely watched situations boxing has faced in years.
Danger at all. Later, I learned the car had crashed head-on into a stationary truck. The full force of the collision hit the front seats. The back seat, where I was, became the only relatively safe place, and that's what saved me. What I still struggle to accept is that the two people in the front didn't survive. In that instant, they took the most violent impact. Without meaning to, they absorbed everything and became my shield. Security pulled me from the car and rushed me to the hospital. The doctors told me I was extremely lucky, that I'd only suffered minor injuries, but honestly, that kind of luck doesn't feel comforting at all. That was the moment I understood something.
As the highs and lows collided, Speaker 1 reflected on how Joshua went from global dominance and viral celebration to unimaginable loss within days, illustrating how fragile success truly is and how quickly destiny can strip everything away, regardless of strength, discipline, or...
So we filed a lawsuit against him, and we'll leave it in the hands of the lawyers. And, you know, we take what he said very seriously. And they would...
Speaker 1 closed with a stark reminder that this was never just about headlines or personalities, but about lives lost and lessons ignored, leaving the boxing world watching the lawsuit unfold with one pressing question hanging in the air: whether justice will be served and whether accountability can prevent another tragedy like this from...
As AJ said, and everybody knows, he's not a real boxer. There's levels to this game, and he was way out of his level, way out.
Anthony Joshua's legal move sent shockwaves through combat sports as reports emerged that he had filed a lawsuit against Jake Paul, framing the case as a response to what Joshua believes was reckless involvement tied to the car accident that nearly took his life, a decision marking a dramatic shift from ring rivalry to courtroom warfare driven by grief, survival, and a demand for accountability.
They are your brothers and sisters under God. We all came from Adam and Eve. In the beginning, everybody on earth. Remember that. Spread love.
Speaker 1's narrative made it clear that Joshua did not rush into accusations lightly, emphasizing that after surviving the crash and returning home from the hospital, he chose legal action only after reflecting on the chain of events, the mechanical failure claims, and the irreversible loss of his closest friends, transforming anger into a calculated pursuit of justice rather than emotional
Designed to be a fighter, where I was like, I joined the amateur club at the age of 8 years old, or my dad had a vision of me being a fighter one day in my life. And
as the story unfolded, Speaker 1 highlighted Joshua's own account of how the crash struck without warning, describing alleged brake failure and a sudden loss of control, with the front of the vehicle absorbing the deadliest impact, a violent moment that spared Joshua in the back seat while claiming the lives of the men he...
Everything for his development. I don't think he did anything for his development because he didn't have somebody in front of him that wanted to test his development.
Speaker 1 framed the survival as haunting rather than fortunate, explaining that Joshua publicly struggled with the knowledge that his position in the vehicle may have saved him while his friends endured the full force of the collision, a realization that reshaped the narrative from celebrity survival to lifelong emotional burden and...
It's just sad. It just makes you realize how valuable life is and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about fights and we talk about beefs and, you know, these things are just nothing when it comes to real life and losing your life. So it was a sad thing to hear, a sad thing to see. God knows how it'll affect those that saw it mentally, emotionally. But you've got to think about these two men who were somebody's child, someone's brother. And that's what you've got to think about, those people that have lost their life.
Commentary escalated when Speaker 1 addressed Eddie Hearn's reaction, portraying him as unapologetically blunt and condemning what he described as reckless behavior surrounding the Paul brothers, confirming the lawsuit while stressing that boxing theatrics end where human life is put at risk, drawing a hard line between entertainment and accountability.
I was there before the news broke, close enough to see what the cameras didn't show. The Jake Paul fight didn't feel won, it felt delivered. 6 rounds like a deadline, 33 million live eyes like a quota, breathwork behind doors timed like ignition. A serpent-tongued cue marking the moment fate locked in. Joshua thought the knockout crowned him. He never realized it completed him. The win wasn't triumph, it was transfer. The crash wasn't accident, it was collection. The script didn't go wrong. It came.
Speaker 1 reinforced that the legal process was now firmly in the hands of lawyers, underscoring that Joshua's camp treated every statement and allegation with seriousness, signaling that this was no publicity stunt, but a structured legal response to a tragedy that permanently altered lives beyond the...
So who am I? I might become a Buddhist in the next 10 years, and my whole perspective on life might change.
Duke McKenzie's criticism was amplified through Speaker 1's lens, depicting Jake Paul as dangerously out of depth, not just as a boxer, but as a public figure whose actions, intentional or not, allegedly contributed to chaos, reinforcing why Joshua's decision to pursue legal action resonated with many within the boxing establishment.
Has sustained minor injuries, and he's fine. Now, these are the images that are out now of what happened. This happened in Nigeria, if you guys don't know. Anthony A.J.
Speaker 1 then shifted to the emotional intensity of Tyson Fury's reaction, emphasizing Fury's anger not as rivalry, but as moral outrage, reminding viewers that this incident involved families, lives, and irreversible loss, and that respect for life must outweigh ego, clout, or promotional bravado.
When he survived, right? Like, did he hit his head? Did he hit his neck? Like, what is he okay? Like, is he 100%? Or is he always going to be a little fuck from that?
Commentary widened as Speaker 1 summarized Carl Frocka's harsh assessment, painting the situation as emblematic of a clownish culture driven by attention, questioning where manufacture hype leads when consequences become real, and how this moment exposed the emptiness behind reckless stunts that forced Joshua.
This guy's in front of the whole world. Netflix, millions of dollars, breaks Jake Paul's jaw in 2 places, decides to go back to Nigeria, almost dies. 2 of his closest friends pass away in the accident. You never know what day's your last.
Johnny Nelson's words were threaded into Speaker 1's narrative as a sobering counterbalance, stressing that nothing about the crash benefited anyone's career, instead revealing how misguided behavior can carry a human cost, with 2 lives lost and countless others emotionally scarred.
Which was SUV struck the stationary truck. So I just want to give you guys the breaking news. Unfortunately, Anthony Joshua was involved in a car accident in Nigeria. Prayers to Anthony A.J. Joshua and his...
To really be there for them and the family, anything they need. You know, sometimes when someone is a star, they have a lot of things in their life taken care of for them. So you really have to move into that mode in this situation as well. Make sure obviously they're getting the best medical attention, make sure their family are safe and happy and as happy.
Alexander Usyk said, "This is an unbelievable loss. Sinna and Latif are 2 incredible people who were not only part of AJ's team, but also friends. My sincere condolences to their families, loved ones, and everyone who knew them. Anthony Joshua, wishing you a speedy recovery. Stay strong, champ."
Speaker 1 emphasized Nelson's reminder that boxing rivalries mean nothing when confronted with death, pointing out that the men who died were sons, brothers, and friends, and that their absence now outweighs any win, loss, or promotional victory ever recorded. The lawsuit feels less like revenge and more like an attempt to regain control, because after losing control in a violent instant on the road, courtrooms become one of the few places where Joshua can slow time, demand answers, and try to create meaning out of something that otherwise feels senseless and unfair. Jake Paul's name at the center of this storm shows how polarizing figures attract intensified blame, but it also raises an uncomfortable truth about accountability in modern combat sports, where attention is rewarded faster than responsibility, and consequences often arrive only after irreversible damage is done. For fans, this story forces a reckoning because it is easier to argue about knockouts than to sit with grief. Hearing voices like Carl Frock and Gerald Miller speak emotionally reminds people that fighters are not characters, but humans who carry fear, regret, and empathy just like anyone watching from home. In the end, Anthony Joshua's path forward will not be measured by his next opponent or payday, but by how he carries this loss, how justice unfolds, and whether the boxing world truly learns from it. Because if names like Joshua, Fury, Hearn, and Nelson cannot shift the culture toward responsibility, tragedies like this risk repeating themselves. From a human perspective, Anthony Joshua's situation feels less like a boxing headline and more like a psychological earthquake, because no amount of championship pressure prepares a person to survive an accident that kills close friends. When names like Eddie Hearn, Tyson Fury, and Johnny Nelson speak out, it shows this pain is being recognized as real trauma, not just another cycle of sports drama. When Joshua points the finger at Jake Paul, whether people agree or not, it reflects a survivor trying to make sense of chaos, because humans naturally search for responsibility after tragedy. In a boxing world where rivalry, money, and provocation are normalized, the line between reckless behavior and real-world consequences can become dangerously blurred. Eddie Hearn's reaction stands out because it does not sound like promotion or damage control, but like a protector drawing a boundary, making it clear that the business of boxing ends when lives are lost, and that Anthony Joshua is not just an asset or a brand, but a man carrying grief that will follow him long after the cameras move on. Tyson Fury's words hit differently because they came without irony or gamesmanship, reminding everyone that behind every crash statistic are families waiting for phone calls that never bring good news. Fury's anger reflects a shared fear among fighters who understand how quickly strength and status mean nothing outside the ring. Johnny Nelson and Duke McKenzie represent an older boxing conscience, and their criticism of Jake Paul is not rooted in jealousy or gatekeeping, but in frustration at a culture where clout chasing can spill into real danger, exposing how unprepared the sport still is to deal with influencers entering spaces with serious consequences. What makes Anthony Joshua's survival so haunting is that it forces him to live with comparison, because every breath he takes now exists alongside the absence of Arab synagogamy and Kevin Latif Shah Ayatol, and that kind of survivor's guilt does not fade with time, titles, or applause.